Kelly wandered the woods for a place she'd been told that would shelter the lost from the dark and the cold. "It's an ideal spot," a good friend had said. He squatted there too when short of a bed. This was now Kelly as life took its toll, out on her own, a young troubled soul. She trudged on and on across the damp sodden land beneath old Irish oaks that stood tall and grand. She'd travelled so far and soon became weary. Was this place even real? She'd conjured a theory. But onward she went, in the now fading light, where just up ahead the house was in sight. I say it's a house, but that isn't it. A manor more like, yes, a much better fit. This place was a gem, hidden lonely and sad, bearing an echo of grandeur once had. But no longer so, I'm afraid you would find, abandoned and old, time had not been kind. But not bad overall, while not in its prime, so long as it's dry, she'd kip here a time. As she shuffled inside, Kelly made a quick scan, to ensure it was safe, the usual plan. She chose a direction and walked down the halls, feeling the paper which peeled off the walls. Downstairs seemed clear, now one floor to go, so she retraced her steps, much to her woe. The halls became dark. Kelly took out her phone, which gave little light as she walked all alone. Kelly felt cold and shivered a tad. She looked at her phone, the signal was bad. Soon she arrived at the foot of the stairs, the jewel of the foyer, it looked worse for wears. Just as she moved to begin her ascent, she heard a small noise from where she had went. So quick and quiet, she almost missed it, like a scurrying sound which shook her a bit. Kelly just stared down the dark corridor, as if pressured to wait, but what was it for? A voice from above then caught her attention. A young woman stood there with some apprehension. But after a moment, her face did confer. She wasn't a threat, as Kelly knew her. They'd met once before, while squatting together, a friend of a friend, and her name was Heather. They caught up a bit, and Kelly felt good. She would not be alone, as she thought that she would. They made for a room, which did look the best, a large well-lit space where some people did rest. Introductions were made, as there were a few others, a third girl and two lads, and the latter were brothers. They spoke for a while, and when all had been said, exhaustion set in, and so set up her bed. She found a good spot, well as good as could be, in a rotting old place, as fate did decree. She rested her head, and chased off the cold, wrapped up and warm, sleep soon took hold. But Kelly woke up, in the dark early morning. Nature had called without any warning. Reluctantly so, she made her way out, not waking the others, still sleeping about. Kelly wandered the hall of the darkened top floor. Choosing sleep or the loo is always a chore. With each weary step, she felt more awake. Kelly made for the stairs, an awful mistake. A noise struck her still from in the foyer. A giggle, she thought, like a child at play. Still so very tired, it must be her head, just calling her back to her old makeshift bed. She was now at the stairs and looked down in surprise at the harrowing scene that seared in her eyes. There, to her horror, before the front door, there was a person lying dead on the floor. She could not see much, for the moonlight did little to reveal the scene which made her feel brittle. But what was worse than the man lying dead was the creature fast eating his now severed head. Kelly felt sick as the horror unfurled. The creature stood up and resembled a girl. She was skinny and small, in an old tattered dress, with a long matted hair that was all in a mess. The girl dropped the head with an unsettling thud. she made for the body, leaving footprints of blood. Looming over the corpse, she dropped to all fours. She leapt for the body and sank in her jaws. She tore at his flesh and gnashed on his bones. She devoured this corpse with satisfied groans. Kelly's heart raced, her mouth tasted of bile. She was going to puke from this sight oh so vile. She kept it all down and made to move back to warn all the others of this gruesome attack. But just as she turned, there came a small groan of the floorboards at foot that chilled to the bone. Silence then fell, as if deciding her fate. She looked at the girl, who now stood up straight, frozen still in her place, as if caught in a snare. Kelly could only watch as she creeped up the stairs. The girl moved her head, as if listening closely. The girl must be blind, thought a frightened Kelly. But reality struck as she drew ever near. Kelly stepped back from this creature she fear. But damned be her luck, with a few steps or more, there came a long creak from that evil old floor. Stopping all of a sudden, the girl growled and spat. She was rabid and mad, no doubt about that. She let out a scream which echoed and roared. Kelly sprinted away, for help she implored. She ran on and on until the room was in sight, but she was being followed to that creature's delight. She saw others stand in the light of the room. They all heard the laugh which sounded their doom. One stood at the door while she was in transit. She feared it would close, and that would be it. By miraculous chance, she made it inside. The man shut the door. In here they could hide. The others asked Kelly what happened out there. She tried to explain with what sense she could bear. They would not believe the cause of this strife, but one said he saw a small girl with a knife. She'd stopped in the hall as if she was afraid, but then raised up the knife and licked at the blade. The manor went quiet, with intentions untold. Kelly shivered with fear, her eyes burning cold. Nobody spoke, as if fearing the sound. Some paced the floor, others stared at the ground. Kelly made for her bed, but comfort she lacked when she felt a small pain just pinch on her back. She touched at the spot where the sharp pain still lingers and saw a red smear of blood on her fingers. Had she been cut? She'd not felt a thing, but the cut was not deep, though it now really sting. She tried to stay calm as the panic did grow, then felt a light breeze from an open window. There Heather stood for some time thereof, only she didn't hear the thuds from above. Heather breathed heavy, just getting some air, but before Kelly spoke, something grabbed at her hair. A slash of the blade and a childish mirth. Heather slumped from the window and down to the earth. Raw-boned and grinning was the devilish face of the demonic girl that took Heather's place. She was certainly blind, her eyes were just white, but she stared straight at Kelly, much to her plight. The door creaking open, Kelly looked over to see the other two people now starting to flee. They sped out the room, her heart dropped like stone. Kelly looked to the window, but was now all alone. She wasted no time and sprinted away. Throughout all the house came cries of dismay. Kelly got to the stairs and looked down to see the man and the woman mourning the body. Kelly ran down with all of her haste. They had to get out, there was no time to waste. They knelt by the corpse in pain and despair. She knew if they stayed just how they would fare. Kelly just tried to talk, but before she could speak, she was quickly cut short by a long, ugly creak. The front door opened wide, and there stood the beast, come back to continue her nightmarish feast. She stood on the spot, and fear chilled them through. Kelly's eyes became cold, and the girl's smile grew. She raised up the knife and giggled a little, the blade old and rough, stained with blood and spittle. Then without warning, the man ran at her. The girl didn't move, but then suddenly stir. She jumped for his throat and slashed at him wild. He could not get hold of this demonic child. He fell to the floor, but grabbed for her leg. He turned to the others. "Just run," he did beg. A moment of pause was only cut short as the woman grabbed Kelly as the struggle still fought. The creature reached out to stop them from leaving, but the man held her still, though now barely breathing. The two ran so fast, cursing and scorning. There was a light in the sky as day was now dawning. They ran and they ran till their bodies implore. Exhaustion took hold and they could run no more. They looked all around and had not been followed, so they sank to the floor. In sadness they wallowed. Some time then passed and the sun was still rising. The woman spoke up with something surprising. "I know who she is, but she just can't be real." Kelly then listened close for what she'd reveal. "Her name is Blind Bonnie. She's a demon, I think, and can see through your eyes when your blood she does drink. Fairies gave her the power after selling her soul. She then killed her parents and devoured them whole." A clairvoyant demon? This couldn't be real. Then a pain stung her back she could once again feel. She had been cut while fleeing at first. The girl had her blood, and this meant the worst. They sat there in silence as the truth now unfold, and terror filled Kelly when her eyes became cold. Good day, I'm John19 and thank you for listening. So, what did you think of Blind Bonnie? Hopefully we'll have you on your toes next time you choose to go urban exploring. I'd been meaning to write this one for a while, so it's nice to finally share it with you. Something about this creepy cannibal child lurking around abandoned buildings really struck me as something horror lovers might appreciate. So hopefully you did. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, then perhaps subscribe, leave a like, and if you're feeling particularly cheeky, maybe even a comment. I do hope that you'll join me again. Stay safe, sleep well, but remember, here we make monsters.